What's happening, guys? It's Hadouken's here at Point4Scan Pro Gaming. And today we're actually talking about Battlefield Hardline. I did a preview on this about a month ago, but since then the game has actually been delayed, and we're going to talk about whether that's a good or a bad thing. Now, Battlefield Hardline was scheduled for release in October this year, but after the beta period, the developers have decided that they think they can make the game better than was originally intended, or they feel like they can now improve on some of the elements of the game, and so they're going to hold it back till 2015. I'm guessing around the March period. Now, overall, I think this is probably a good thing. A lot of people were looking forward to the game. I was looking forward to it, and I think they've delayed it because they feel they can improve on it. One of the things that disappointed me with Hardline was it didn't feel like the cops versus criminals aspect was really played upon as much as it could have been, and that was a bit of a disappointment. I think after the beta, they've taken on feedback of the map design, the gameplay elements, and they've thought to themselves, actually, we can make this better. A lot of people are skeptical, and they're saying, well, they've delayed it because it's not good enough, or the game's buggy, or along those lines. I don't think that's the case. If you look at how improved Battlefield 4 is now with the CTE, a lot of the improvements that have been made from Battlefield 4 CTE have been applied to Battlefield Hardline, and vice versa actually. Some of the elements from Hardline that we experienced in the beta, the startup screen and a couple of other things, have actually been transferred across to the CTE. Also, I don't think there was very many crashes during the beta either. I personally didn't have a single one. I don't know if anybody else had problems with it, but overall the game was pretty stable. It's definitely not a buggy, stable sort of thing because they're using Battlefield 4 as a base anyway, and that game is a lot further along than it was when that released. It's definitely a gameplay thing. I think they've taken the elements of what they've got right now, and they've sat down and they've said, this isn't good enough, we can improve it. I don't think they would have done that, though, if a lot of people wouldn't have expressed their concerns. A lot of people felt as though it was a DLC for Battlefield 4, and that's hard to argue against. When you jump into the game, everything kind of feels like Battlefield 4, just with different player models and different game modes. And although that's fine, if the game is amazing, people will deal with that. But the game wasn't really amazing. It wasn't a game that was, wow, this has blown me away, completely different. It just felt like you'd taken the Battlefield 4 base game, you changed a couple of player models, you'd added like cops versus criminals, and this is Battlefield Hardline. What we didn't get to see was the fact that Visceral Games are well known for their single player campaigns, and of course the single player campaign we haven't seen anything of yet. We've seen trailers, but that is supposedly something they're trying to make exceptionally good. That's great and all, but Battlefield isn't really made as a single player game. They're obviously trying to make that single player element to compete with COD and things like that, but Battlefield 4 is all about the multiplayer. That's what we want. And if delaying it by, say, 4 or 5 months means that the elements of the game are improved, then that is fine. The problem is, what happens if this game comes out in March and people say, what have you done? This game still feels exactly like it did when I played the beta. Who knows? I think since then, or between now and March, they're going to have a lot of guys play testing the game. I'm sure they'll have another like YouTuber session where they go over to San Francisco or to the DICE studios or somewhere like that and they play test it. And we'll probably hear some feedback from them as to say how different the game feels, whether it does feel any different or not. Overall, though, it's a bit of a disappointment that we're not going to get Battlefield again this year, but I think it's a good thing, and I'm glad that they have taken this step. I think, though, they were only able to take this step because they got some EA earnings reports through for Q4, and they were quite impressive, and so I think that helped them. Because the EA earnings were impressive, they had the option to delay Hardline. If those EA earnings weren't impressive, I think Hardline would have been forced out anyway. But we're in the situation where it hasn't been forced out, so that's good for the game. So now this game isn't going to come out till March, so stay tuned for it, look out for it. I'm sure we'll see more footage over the coming months. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.